It is May 27, 1936. Cheers ring out across the banks of the river Clyde as thousands of people have gathered to watch the largest ship ever built be launched. This ship is going to be one of the most luxurious vessels to ever sail the seas. It has 14 decks, a swimming pool, shops, restaurants, and enough space to carry over 2,000 passengers in the lap of luxury. And with a top speed of 30 knots, this boat can cross the Atlantic faster than any other vessel before it. This is the RMS Queen Mary. But as impressive as this ship was, there were many things about its design that were never supposed to be seen by the public. From hidden tunnels to an entire secret deck. Here are 20 things no one knew about the Queen Mary's design. Welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, and you are watching this channel. Join me today as we take a look at some of the most secretive aspects of one of the most iconic ships ever to set sail. Let's get into it. Number 20. The secret Art Deco door. When you think of the Queen Mary, you probably imagine images of the massive ocean liner cutting through the waves with incredible grace and speed. You might picture the opulent dining rooms filled with laughing, chatting passengers, or the vast promenade deck where live bands played as the ship cut through the cold North Atlantic. What you likely don't imagine is a gritty, grimy boiler room with soot covering everything in sight. But if you want to see what life was like below deck, there's one place you can visit that will give you a small taste of what working on the Queen Mary was like. The secret Art Deco door located on the ship's exterior, tucked away on the side of the ship in a spot not accessible to tourists, is a door covered in grime and soot, but once painted a beautiful shade of red. This door was used by crew members to access the ship's furnaces and boilers, which produced the steam needed to power the massive engines that allowed the Queen Mary to cruise at record speeds. In addition to the soot, the door itself is incredibly worn, showing just how much foot traffic it saw during the years it was in use. Number 19. Inside the captain's quarters. While the Queen Mary had plenty of room for passengers, with many different cabin options, it was also home to a crew of over 800 men and women who made the ship run smoothly. Of course, while the staff cabins were likely quite cramped, the captain's quarters were fit for royalty, with 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and an office. This lavish suite gave the captain everything he could possibly need. And because the captain was responsible for the safe navigation of the ship, his quarters were located in the safest place possible, directly above the waterline and in the middle of the ship. As anyone who's ever been on a boat knows, being in the middle is the best way to avoid getting seasick. Additionally, the captain's quarters were one of the few places on the ship without carpet, so that he would untrip while running between his bedroom and the bridge. No. 18. The secret passage. If you've ever been on a cruise, then you've likely noticed how loud the ocean can get. Imagine trying to sleep in a cabin right under or above a raging party. Not exactly conducive to getting those precious Z's. For that reason, secret passages were built throughout the Queen Mary to allow guests to move from one part of the ship to another, without having to walk the length and breadth of multiple decks. These hallways ran behind wall panels and were only accessible via secret doors, allowing guests to travel more quickly and more quietly. There were even special doors designed into some of the walls that allowed guests to pass straight through them without having to open a door, preventing noise from traveling even further. Number 17. The ship within a ship. One of the most fascinating things about the Queen Mary is the fact that it was built with a completely separate engine room and accommodations for a crew of 200 officers and men. This was done in case the ship was ever converted to a troop ship. The crew of the ship would operate the outer hull, while the inner hull would function as a floating barracks, complete with bunks, mess halls, and storage. Even though this was considered a contingency plan, the ship was actually converted to a troop ship twice during World War II. So the secret ship within a ship proved useful. Number 16. Built to last. Because the Queen Mary was the largest ship afloat when she was built, she was automatically considered a floating palace. To maintain this reputation, the ship was constructed to last. Unlike other ships of her time, which were considered expendable and scrapped after a few years of service, the Queen Mary was meant to be a permanent fixture of the ocean liner's fleet. To ensure the longevity of the ship, Cunard employed an innovative new method of construction known as the longitudinal method. Instead of building the ship in sections and bolting them together, the entire hull was constructed at once, resulting in a stronger, more durable ship. This construction method allowed the Queen Mary to withstand the rigors of transatlantic travel for decades to come. Number 15. Swimming pool. It is no secret that the Queen Mary boasted one of the most luxurious pools ever seen on a ship. The Art Deco style pool was a focal point of the ship's second promenade deck and featured mosaic tiles depicting ocean waves along with a backdrop that changed colors. But did you know that the pool was heated to a balmy 86 degrees Fahrenheit? At the time, this was considered a health hazard, as it provided the perfect environment for disease-carrying bacteria to grow. However, the pool remained heated because it was felt that the luxury experience would be diminished if the pool were any colder. Number 14. Secret compartments. One of the most famous features of the Queen Mary is the anchor that is mounted on the bowsprit of the ship, However, what most people don't realize is that the anchor isn't just for show. The anchor is attached to a massive chain that runs through a secret compartment inside the ship's. This allows the crew to drop the anchor without having to go all the way down to the lower decks where the anchor chain is stored. While this may seem like a small convenience, it actually saved the lives of many crew members who would have otherwise had to climb down steep ladders while carrying heavy chains. Number 13. Unbreakable windows. In the early days of ocean liner travel, it wasn't uncommon for a ship to strike an iceberg or other debris in the water, causing large cracks to form in the windows of the ship. This not only made the ship unsightly, but it also put the passengers at risk of injury from flying glass. To prevent this from happening to the Queen Mary, the windows were constructed from a revolutionary new material called laminated glass. This type of glass consists of several layers of glass bonded together with a layer of plastic. The plastic prevents the glass from shattering, even if the window is cracked. This innovation allowed the passengers to view the ocean around them without fear of injury. Number 12. The Lost Dog. On April 14, 1912, the Titanic sank after colliding with an iceberg. The disaster claimed the lives of over 1,500 people and sent shockwaves around the world. To prevent a similar tragedy from happening to the Queen Mary, the ship was equipped with the latest technology available at the time, including wireless telegraphy, which allowed the ship to communicate with other vessels and shore-based stations. The ship also had a state-of-the-art bilge pump system, which allowed the crew to remove water from the ship's hull. However, despite all of these precautions, the Queen Mary was still vulnerable to disaster. In 1936, a fire broke out in the ship's boiler room, causing extensive damage to the ship. The fire was eventually put out, but not before causing significant damage to the ship. One of the most mysterious aspects of the fire is that it was never determined how it started. Some believe that it was caused by faulty wiring, while others believe that it was the result of sabotage. Number 11. Rudder. The rudder is one of the most important parts of any ship. It's what allows the crew to control the direction of the vessel, and without a rudder, the ship would be at the mercy of the elements. The Queen Mary's rudder was one of the largest ever built at the time, and was made from a special alloy of metals that allowed it to withstand the force of the ocean without bending or breaking. This was important because the rudder had to be able to steer the massive ship at high speeds. Number 10. Lifeboats. When the Queen Mary was first launched, it was considered to be the epitome of luxury travel. However, as the years went on, people began to demand more and more from their travel experiences. As a result, the Queen Mary underwent a series of renovations to keep up with the times. One of the most significant changes made to the ship was the addition of lifeboats. Lifeboats are essentially small boats that are carried on larger vessels in case of emergency. They allow passengers and crew to evacuate the ship quickly in the event of a disaster. The Queen Mary was one of the first ocean liners to feature lifeboats, which were installed in the early 1960s. 9. Watertight doors. One of the most important aspects of any ship's design is its watertight doors. These doors are what prevent water from leaking into the ship in the event of a storm or collision. The Queen Mary's watertight doors were some of the most advanced of their time and featured a series of seals that ensured that no water could get through. This was important because the ship was so large that if it were to sink, the damage would be catastrophic. Number 8. Double bottom. The double bottom is essentially a second hull that sits beneath the main hull of the ship. It acts as a barrier to prevent water from entering the ship's compartments. The Queen Mary's double bottom was made from steel and was one of the first of its kind to be used on such a large scale. This innovation allowed the ship to stay afloat, even if the hull was breached. Number 7. Complicated plumbing system. The plumbing system on board the Queen Mary was one of the most complicated of its time. The ship featured a network of pipes that carried fresh water to all parts of the vessel. This was important because the ship, as passengers and crew, required a constant supply of clean water for drinking and sanitation purposes. The Queen Mary's plumbing system also featured a sewage system that was capable of handling the waste of over 2,000 people. This was a major accomplishment at the time, as sanitation was a major concern on board ships. 6. Propellers. The propellers on the Queen Mary were some of the largest ever built at the time. Each propeller was over 22 feet in diameter and was powered by a steam turbine. This allowed the ship to reach speeds of up to 30 knots, making it one of the fastest ocean liners of its day. The Queen Mary's propellers were also designed to be highly efficient, which allowed the ship to conserve fuel while traveling long distances. Number 5. The engine room. The engine room on board the Queen Mary was a marvel of engineering. It housed for massive steam turbines that generated enough power to drive the ship's propellers. The engine room was also equipped with a number of generators that provided electricity to the ship's various systems. In addition to the engines and generators, the engine room also contained a number of boilers that produced the steam needed to power the turbines. The boilers were fueled by a number of furnaces that burned a combination of oil and coal. Number 4. The bridge. The bridge was the command center of the Queen Mary. It was located on the top deck of the ship and provided the crew with a 360-degree view of the surrounding area. The bridge was equipped with a number of instruments and devices that allowed the crew to navigate the ship and avoid obstacles. In addition to the navigational equipment, the bridge also contained a number of communication systems that allowed the crew to communicate with other ships and shore-based stations. The bridge was staffed at all times with a crew of officers and sailors who were responsible for the safe operation of the vessel. Number 3. The Grand Staircase. The Grand Staircase was one of the most iconic features of the Queen Mary. It was a sweeping spiral staircase that connected the ship's lower decks to the upper decks. The staircase was made from marble and brass and was adorned with intricate carvings and mosaics. It was a popular spot for passengers to meet and mingle, and it was often the site of formal events and ceremonies. Number 2. The Library. The library was one of the most relaxing spots on board the Queen Mary. It was a quiet place where passengers could escape the hustle and bustle of the ship as other public areas. The library featured a wide selection of books and periodicals, and it was also equipped with comfortable chairs and sofas. It was a popular spot for writers and intellectuals to work and socialize, and it was often the site of lectures and other educational events. No. 1. The Observation Lounge. The Observation Lounge was one of the best places to relax on board the Queen Mary. It was a spacious area with floor-to-ceiling windows that provided panoramic views of the ocean and sky. The lounge was furnished with comfortable chairs and sofas, and it was a popular spot for passengers to gather and socialize. It was also a great place to enjoy a cup of coffee or tea while taking in the stunning views. And that's it, folks. Thank you so much for joining me today as we explored some of the most secretive aspects of the Queen Mary's design. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button so you never miss an upload. Until next time, happy sailing!